Oh, good afternoon, this is Justin G8YTZ, and today we're going to be installing the Radio Analog PTRX-9700 in an iCOM 9700. Now what the Radio Analog PTRX does is actually provides an IF and RF output for the three bands, that's 2 meters and 70 centimeters at RF at final frequency, and 23 cents at IF, which is around about 320 to 380 megahertz or thereabouts. Now my use case is not actually the use case that this is designed for. It's designed to go into an SDR, so you can have a panoramic adapter or tune across the other bands. But I'm using it with the British Amateur Television Club Minituner. That's the front panel. There's the rear panel with the USB output and RF inputs and the 12 volt of course. And there's a display here if you're using the Minituner with the Minitune PC software. I tend to use it with the Ride software, but nevertheless this is a fantastic tuner. But there are a couple of Achilles heels. It uses a Surrett satellite TV tuner module, and that's very wide band, and it's also very deaf because it's designed to be used with an L&B which has plenty of gain. So later on you'll find out in the video, I was delighted to find out that the PTRX utilises the front end of the iCOM for preamplification, the filtering, and there's indeed buffer amplification in the PTRX-9700, which means the levels and the filtering coming out into the Minituner are absolutely perfect, exactly what you want. So what I can now do is I've got my beam antennas connected to the IC9700. The auxiliary output that the PTRX provides feeds a Minituner, so I can watch television and I can watch and I can use the radio in a normal way and actually, you know, see what's happening on the TV parts of the spectrum on both 2 meters, 70 centimeters and 23 centimeters. Right now, at the time of recording this, the frequencies are commonly in use on those bands. On 2 meters, it's 146.5 megahertz in the UK. We have a special band extension with a notice of variation which you can apply for online for your license. We're allowed 50 watts ERP on that part of the band, and it's used exclusively for television wideband digital modes. 70 centimeters, the general frequency that people use is 437 megahertz, so that varies up and down a bit. And on 23 centimeters, the most popular repeater input frequency is 1249 megahertz. Of course, that's subject to whatever happens with the satellite, the GPS systems in the future. There may be some band modifications there and modifications to where we put to TV. But at the time of recording this, we generally use 1249 for repeater inputs and sometimes 1255 megahertz. So that's my use case. Will it work? Well, not to give the game away, yes, it works very well. I've recorded this after I've done the installation. So we'll go over onto the installation part of the video now, and you can see the end result right at the end. Well, good afternoon. This is Justin G8YTZ, and this afternoon, or evening I should say, in mid-April, I'm going to install the Radio Analog PTRX-9700 add-on board to my iCOM IC9700. Now there's a slight complication that I've already got the Leo Bodnar GPS lock board in this radio, but I'm assured by Radio Analog that the two are perfectly compatible and there are no particular issues, so that's really good news. So I've opened the box, and what have we got? We've got a SMA lead there. We've got 3 little leads for internal for the 3 of the IF for 23 SEM and also the 77 2-meter signals. We've got a power lead extension, some screws, and this thing, which I don't know what it is yet because I haven't read the instructions, the main board, and of course the filter board when you're using the outputs of the PTRX-9700 to drive an SDR. and of course the lock input from your frequency reference as well. So that's the total kit. We start by obviously turning the radio upside down. Opportunity also to clean it over with some wet wipes, and we start by undoing the screws, and I'll probably have to loosen the handle. I've got the optional handle fitted on here, so we'll do that as well. So let me do the disassembly, and I'll be back in a minute. Now you've removed the cover, and there are 12 screws, and you do have to remove the side handle if you have that optional handle fitted. The 2 screws you need to remove from the main PC board to mount it are screw number 6, and they're labelled, and screw number 7. So 6 and 7, remove those. So now the new board is mounted. It's fairly tricky because they're self-tapping screws, so you have to fiddle a bit getting the standoffs over the screws, then into the board, but it's straightforward. You can see on the right here also my Leo Bodnar board, the reference injection board, which is there on the right. So as you can see, it's been thought through the way this has been designed, so we're not interfering with the board. Note also that the RF connectors on the board are facing the front of the radio, and the 2 power connectors, the power and the loop through, are connected at the back of the board. Now on my radio, because I've got the Leo Bodnar board fitted, that's this board here, you will see that I've got an SMA to SMA going to the rear panel. That's not the original cable. The original cable is an SMA socket to UFL connector, so what we're going to do now is reinstall that original iCOM cable. So to remove the SMA from the back, you need an 8mm spanner, and that's what I'm going to be using. You can skip this step if you've not got the Leo Bodnar board installed in your radio. So I've reinstalled the original iCOM cable, 8mm spanner for the nut of course, and I've routed it away from the printed circuit board, so it's just running along the side of the die-cast chassis here, and it's connected to the COM input on the new PTRX-9700 board. The reference output will go to the Leo Bodnar board. Now one of the great things about the Leo Bodnar board, they really have thought this through, you know. I was using the SMA input, but they've also included a UFL connector for the input as well, so I will use the cable supplied with the PTRX-9700 kit to connect that to the reference output on this board. So that's the Leo Bodnar board, this little UFL connector here, connected to the other pin, the right hand pin on the new PTRX board, and that's labelled Ref, which is underneath the connector. Now just a word of warning about these connectors, you have to make sure you get them perfectly perpendicular with the connector, and then gentle pressure and they'll click in. If you've not done these before, do take care, because you could actually easily break them, and you don't want to do that. I'm just going to move this around a little bit to just get that parallel as well without touching that chip component there. In fact, I might just no, it's alright, it's away from those little chip components there as well. I don't want that shorting out. In fact, I might even move it right over up to this side like that. I think that would be that would be better. So we'll do it like that, I think. Keep away from any of those parts which are mounted on the board, just in case of a short circuit. So that's pretty straightforward. As I say, if you haven't got the Leo Bodnar board, then there's not so much to do. You're just going to connect this direct to the input on the iCOM, or leave it there, or connect the original cable to here, and the right hand ref you connect to the reference on the board. If you've got the Leo Bodnar, then great. To be honest, the Leo Bodnar board is quite cheap, and even if you're budget constrained, I would suggest while you're doing this, you actually put the board in as well. You don't have to use it, you don't have to put a reference in. You can buy the GPS reference device, which is about £100 later on. But I would recommend putting the board in so you don't have to go back and revisit that in case you want to, you know, later lock your IC9700 to GPS. So that's fairly straightforward. Now to connect the RF and IF sections for each of the 3 bands. Well, now I've got the connectors connected for the 2 RF and the 23 SEM IF. My 70 SEM cable here was a bit of a tight. I had to pull it a bit more and it was quite tight, hence the routing's not ideal. But basically it's the 3 grey cables you're interested in, the left-hand 3, not the right-hand 3 black ones. It's the left-hand 3 and they literally go point to point. So the radio cables go to the left and the new cables which you're going to connect back to the radio connectors to the right. Now these connectors are extremely fragile. It's important to line them up properly before you press down, and you only need the slightest pressure. Any resistance, I just use the end of my fingernail, any resistance whatsoever, and you've not got the connector aligned, and you don't want to damage the connector. Crikey, if you damage the connector on the radio, you're going to be in for a big bill, because replacing that is not going to be very easy, even for a professional. So the last thing to do now, and I admit I haven't done this in the order in the instructions, is to do the power loop through. Now, one other thing I will say is do use the instructions off the website, because the pictures on the printed form are not very good resolution, but the website you can really zoom in and see actually how it connects. So I recommend you go onto the Radio Analog website and look at the instructions on there. So we'll do the power now. So here we have the power connectors, and the one we're interested in with the radio again still facing the front and the fan there at the back. The one you're interested in is the left-hand power connector, the left-hand one. So I'm going to remove that and connect that to the board. So as you can see, I've removed the power connector and things are a bit tight. It's not going to reach the board, so it's necessary to snip a couple of these cable ties. This is shown in the instructions on the website. So we'll snip this one, and hopefully that's all we need to snip, not the other one. Well, as you can see, I've rerouted the power cable and added some black cable ties here, just to make sure everything is moved away, you know, routed away from the board over that bit of shielding there. We're ready now to put the final loop power connector in, so we'll do that next. And so you just need to, it's a bit tight, so you just need to be careful with the routing here of the cable. So the supplied cable is installed. Obviously the power supply connectors are all keyed, you can't get them in the wrong way round, but any resistance you might have them on the wrong way. For reference, the white cable is on the left, the white cable is on the left. Okay, and I've just tie wrapped these together as well to you know, and I say it's nicely sprung up so it'll touch the top of the case and not the you know, not the circuit board, which I think is important just from an RF screening point of view and stray currents and things. So the theory is that should be it. If all these connectors are in nicely, and they should be, they all clicked in nicely. I was very careful with those. If you haven't done this before with these connectors, I suggest you get yourself an old you know, Wi-Fi thingy, take it apart and click the connectors in and out, because I'll use similar types of connectors, or an old mobile phone or something like that, which doesn't matter, and just practice, or any old board you can find with these connectors, because they are rather fragile. And as I say, make sure you align them properly perpendicular. You're not putting them at an angle, they're going in the vertical. And also when you press down on them, there'll be a little click, but it only needs the gentlest of pressure. It doesn't need much pressure. If you're having to apply pressure, that means you've not got the connector aligned correctly, and you should go back and, you know, have a look at it, get a magnifying glass out and double check again. So with a bit of luck, we've got a working Lure Bodnar still, and we've got an output for the SDR, but I'm not using it for an SDR. I'm using it for British Amateur Television Club Minituner to receive TV at the same time as I have the IC9700 connected to my beam antennas. So that's my use case. I don't know how it's going to work, or whether I'll need a buffer amplifier. With a bit of luck, it'll all be hunky-dory and work really well. So let's put the lid back on and check the radio out and make sure the radio itself is working as it should do. Well, this is a success. So I've got the radio reassembled. I'm transmitting TV on 1249 megahertz just from an SDR in the room without any any amplification, just a milliwatt or so. And as you can see, 1249 megahertz, you can see the TV signal. The output of the SDR output of the 9700 or the PTRX-9700 is going to my Minituner, and here it is displaying the picture, and you'll notice that it's tuned to 320 megahertz. That's because on 23 centimeters we're looking at the iCOM IF, which is the local oscillator is 929 megahertz. So 1249 plus 320 plus 929 comes to 1249. That's right, isn't it? Yes, it is. Just checking my maths there. Now, by switching the preamp in and out, you can see you can see the RF level here is currently at minus 55 dBm. If I take the preamp out, it drops to minus 66. If I put the attenuator in on the iCOM, it drops to minus 71. So minus 71, minus 65, and with the preamp in, neg 55. So that's working, and I've confirmed that on the other bands, but we'll just go over to 70 centimeters and quickly show that, and 2 meters as well. Okay, again, here we have the TV transmitter on 437 megahertz, and as before, of course, it's the same output of the iCOM from the PTRX-9700 driving the Minituner directly. It's relying on the preamplification, the buffer amplification in the PTRX-9700 and the filtering in the iCOM. So at the minute we've got the preamp off. Let's put it into attenuator first. Okay, so we've got the attenuator on. And if we go up here, we can see there's the picture. We're tuned to 437 because we're not using an IF, it's direct frequency on 77s. And as you can see, we've got an RF level of minus 50. Now if I take the attenuator off, the RF level drops to minus 40, and if I put the preamp on the 9700, we're at minus 24. So that's proving all the preamplification stages are working on the 9700. So now let's do 2 meters. Okay, so here we are on 2 meters. We're actually transmitting on 146.5 on 2 meters. In the UK, there's an NOV available for the extra 1 megahertz between 146 and 147. So I've got that NOV. So here we are, 146. Currently the preamp's in, and let's look at the Minituner and all that. You can see an RF level of minus 25 dBm. If I take the preamp off, it goes to minus 39. If I put the attenuator in on the iCOM, it goes to minus 44. Okay, and put the preamp back in. That's the attenuator, is the preamp. Okay, and the carrier noise, the modulation error ratio doesn't really change because that's a function of lots of other things, not just the preamplification. But again, that proves very nicely it's working. I can switch bands. If I switch to 437 megahertz, then it's still working, of course. And if I switch to 23 sems, a slight glitch there while it relocks, but nevertheless no significant difference from what I can see. It's saying minus 46 dBm. Let's just go back to 146. Yeah, minus 25. So it looks like if you the bands which are displayed on the radio are the ones which would be operating properly. If I switch to 23, then obviously I'm as the main band, and that changes. So you can have 2 bands at once coming out of this thing, as far as I can tell with the quick test. But very, very successful. This is really, really good news. If you want to share your receive aerials with your 9700 and your TV Minituner, The PTRX-9700 is the device to buy. It sorts all the filtering out, it sorts preamplification out for your Minituner, and what a great result it is. I can't wait to test it with another TV enthusiast and see how it performs compared with how GB3JV picks up the signal. Generally at my house in GB3JV, you know, if JV's got, say, an MER of 10, I'll get an MER of 10, despite having a beam. Of course, I'm not so high up as the repeater. The repeater's using a WIMO, on 77s it's using a WIMO big wheel. On 23.7s it's using a flat plate antenna pointing west. But anyway, this is a real success. I'm so pleased now. I've got easy receive capabilities for TV on any antenna that the iCOM 9700's connected to. What a fantastic job this is. And just a reminder that it's Martin Lynch and Sons who are the dealers for the PTRX 9700. Enjoy, that's all I can say.